request for you. A creator that I really like, an ASMR creator. Channel name is Tirara de Guello. He is having a little bit of trouble with his health right now. And I would really appreciate it, and I think he would too, if you guys would go check out some of his stuff, maybe comment, whatever. I'll put a link in the description to his channel. Moving on to the video at hand, we are going to be talking about the Eldar, but we're not going to be talking about current Eldar, because according to the ISBN number for this book, this is a 3rd edition codex. I had no idea that 40k 3rd edition was in 2001, but there you have it. Welcome, revered leader, star of the firmament, to Codex Eldar, a book dedicated to helping you collect, paint, and fight battles with the warriors of the craft world Eldar in Warhammer 40k. The Eldar are an incredibly ancient race who once ruled a vast empire across the stars. Then came the hideous times of the Fall, when the Eldar were consumed by their own decadence and fell from power. The few who survived were scattered across the stars. Though the Eldar are few in number, they are one of the most technologically advanced races in the galaxy. This advantage is combined with the prodigious abilities of their Farseers, who scry the future and guide their kin along the most favorable paths of fate. And since this is an old army book, we have to get past some early introductory stuff to the actual tabletop. The Monkey do not understand their peril, thought Feruithir. We send them warnings, messengers to tell them that they must not delve into any past mysteries and terrors, and they ignored us. Well, they will not be able to ignore our weapons. They cannot dare turn a blind eye to our magnificent warriors. The warp spider Exarch felt the mind of Farseer Durrell touch his own, hearing the Farseer's message in the instant of contact. Shifting his position slightly so that he could survey the battle, he spoke to the others of his squad. The time for our attack is nigh. Prepare to move with me along the skein, my kin. The armored warrior women of the Monkey were holding out against the Eldar attack for now. However, Durrell had informed the Exarch that Sylvanol and his shining spears were currently outflanking the enemy to the west, and that the warp spiders were to move around the enemy line to the east. When the time was ready, the two squads would attack from behind at the same time, confusing the humans and allowing the striking scorpions and guardians to finish them off with a frontal attack. Feruithir activated his jump generator. His stomach lurched momentarily as his body was shifted into the warp. Visions of the immaterial realm swept across his eyes for a split second, and his mind was filled with an anarchic wailing as he could sense a great hungering maw tugging at his spirit. Then the jump generator deposited him back into the real universe. For a moment after reappearing, he thought that he could hear a distant heartbeat, thundering across the universe like the pulse of a god, and then the transition was fully complete. Feruithir found himself in the grounds of some ancient edifice, the remains of its curving walls and strange arches clearly showing that it had not been built by human hands, but by beings far older than the men of Terra. As the Eldar attack continued, Feruithir saw the mighty form of the Wraith Lord Cúldadan, heroine from the Battle of 1,000 Blades and savior of the flame, striding through the ruins, her star cannon sending flares of energy into the foe. A falcon swept past the towering Wraith Lord, pulse lasers picking out its target with unerring accuracy, sending plumes of smoke rising from one of the crude Monkey transports. As he watched, the warp spider Exarch saw a group of male humans charge across the debris of the ancient human settlement. Keely and her storm squad reacted quickly, pulling their blades from ornamented sheaths. They swiftly intercepted the barbaric aliens before they could reach the hill where Durrell stood with his guns encircled the humans, the savages seemed to rip at their clothing. It was only when the first detonation flung 4 guardians into the air that the Exarch realized that the Monkey had been wearing bandoliers of explosives. As more explosions tore through the guardians, Faroethir felt a disgust seep through every cell in his body. Only humans would put so little value on life that they would gladly commit suicide. A sudden noise attracted Faroethir's attention, the sound of stone rolling against stone. Spinning around, he noticed a group of humans trying to sneak past the Eldar lines. This could not be allowed. Durell's orders were that all humans were to be exterminated. None were to be allowed to continue their delving into the Herudian catacombs. Kill them, Faroethir told his squad, thrusting an elegant finger at the humans as they clambered amongst the fallen masonry. The warp spiders readied their death spinners, and a moment later the air was full of a cloud of monofilament wire. As the humans became enmeshed in the tangle, Faroethir could see them becoming more terrified, the strands slicing at skin and flesh. Their fear grew, and they thrashed wildly, lopping off their own limbs as they struggled against the constricting mass. Faroethir noticed the look in the eyes of one of the Monkey. It reminded him of the wild stare of a food animal that knows it is to be slaughtered. Within a few more heartbeats, nothing was left except a red pile of unidentifiable fleshy ruin. Then Durell's voice flashed in the Exarch's mind again, ordering him to move onward. Activating his warp jump again, the Exarch felt the pull of the warp even more strongly than before. The heartbeat resounded through his ears. The craving for life swept all around him, almost overwhelming him. He felt the spirit stone at his chest burning with golden fire against his own heart. Then it was over once again, as their jump generators set him and the squad 100 yards behind the nearest of their adversaries, within the shelter of the ruins of an old human building. Its walls long since crumbled with time, its bricks held together by the moss and vines. Durell passed on the telepathic command to wait while the trap was set. When Sylvanol was in position, that trap would be sprung, and the humans would be doomed. And now we have to scroll through more non-lore things. If anybody knows, I'm sure many of you do, tell me in the comments what the difference is between normal Eldar and Craft World Eldar, or if there is a difference at all. I've just never heard them referred to as Craft World Eldar. I'm assuming that there's a similar term for, what do you call them, for Dark Eldar, but I don't really know. Maroth enchanted quietly, his voice barely a whisper, the complex spell spilling from his lips in a continuous stream of syllables. As he wove the enchantment, the runes and sigils adorning the portal began to glow, some white, others gold and silver, their inner fire casting flickering shadows across the Farseer's face and his heavy robes. Passing his hand across the gateway, he spoke the final verse, sealing the entrance to the Webway for all eternity. He turned and faced the warlocks around him. It is done. The runes of ending have been invoked. Our enemies will find no passage through here now, he told them. The youngest of the warlocks, Carhadron, who was barely 300 Eldar years of age, made a respectful gesture to attract Maroth's attention. Morfessa, I do not understand the necessity of closing the webway through this portal. The warlock's young face expressed his sincere concern. If your divinations are correct, and the dark kin will find this path to us, then surely is it not better to be prepared with warriors and weapons, and destroy them once and for all? What you say holds much truth, Maroth replied. As you know, the webway, what remains of it, links us to the ancient places and the other craft worlds. It binds us together and allows us to move swiftly and unseen by the eyes of our enemies. Yet the dark kin found their refuge from the fall within its winding paths, and their dark city spreads like a stain in the depths. They do not know all the ways and means and places within the webway. Only the harlequins could claim that skill, but on occasion they will stumble by chance upon the correct turning or upon one of our portals. The Infinity Circuit has shown that this will happen, here in this place. However, I have only learnt of the place of their attack, not the time. It would be impossible for us to maintain our guard for an indefinite period. It could be many years before the possible events I witness come to pass, and we have not the resources for such vigilance as would be necessary. We require certainty on this, an absolute surety against attack, which only sealing of the portal brings. If one of the dark kin broke through our watchers, they could gain access to the Infinity Circuit. Such a treasure trove of our ancestors' spirits would be irresistible to them. The carnage they could wreak in our most holy of places is beyond countenance. No, better to be certain. Carhadron gave a bow, his eyes lowered out of respect. Your wisdom is faultless as ever, Morfessa. I am most sorry for my lack of understanding and lack of faith, the warlock apologized. Maroth smiled warmly, raising the warlock's chin with his slender fingers so that their eyes met. Never apologize for asking questions, young seers, the Farseer told his acolytes. Through asking questions we find answers, and through those answers we gain greater knowledge of ourselves and the universe around us. Maroth's face hardened, his jaw clenched tightly. Our race stopped asking questions once before, and our complacency all but destroyed us. This must never happen again. And once again we enter non-lore stuff. I'm concerned that this book has almost no lore in it. Incredible. There's almost nothing in here. Very interesting. Okay, so you know what? We are going to read through what there is, and then that will be it. I will do my best to find other sources, but... So, if you like Eldar, sorry. Eldrad is the greatest among us. He is the sun which eclipses the light of our stars. He is the Ulthway, and the fate of our kind rests in his hands. His eyes are the keenest, no detail goes unnoticed. 4,000 runes can he cast, guiding our path through torment and war, death and salvation. He is the pathfinder, the seeker, the true guide. Even your race has trembled before his might, though you may not have known it. It was he who guided us to the orc known as Gazgul, and commanded us to steer his path to your world of Armageddon. 10,000 Eldar lives would have been lost if he had not done so. What sacrifices 1,000,000 humans for such a cause? He knows your affairs better than you do yourself. He warned that weakling seer you call Emperor of the treachery of Horus, and the strife which would engulf us, just as it engulfed the rest of the galaxy, but your arrogance deafened you to his words. Your stupidity almost destroyed the galaxy, yet you never knew how close the forces of light were to our ultimate defeat. He saw the great devourer and warned our kin, Aniandin, even before they had neared our galaxy. To him, all futures are laid out, just as your crude implements of torture are laid out on the cold metal of that shelf. You say we are random and capricious. We say you are vulgar and idiotic. Some of you call us your enemies. All races are our enemy in time. Some of you call us your allies. You are not allies, any more than a butcher's knife is his ally. You are tools, nothing more, to be used and expended to protect our race. That is your fate. Your kind think you are so magnificent, yet even now, as the nadir of our power, we can manipulate you, turn you to our ends, as easily as you might pull a trigger and fire a gun. Our time will come again, Eldrad has promised us. Once more, you upstart Monkey, subject spits, shall kneel before our power. This time we will not be so... a word I can't read because it's blurry. We will exterminate you, every world, every vessel, every one of you. Eldrad has seen the stars stained red with your blood, and it pleases him. You think us weak, but we will be your doom, children of Earth. Interrogation of captured Eldar Ranger, prisoner number 28264, prisoner awaiting termination. Arianel ran a slender finger along the tracing lines of wraithbone that were wreathed around the infinity circuit channel. At her touch, the wraithbone began to pulse with psychic energy, a warm glow spreading outwards along the web of the psychotropic material. Singing softly, offering her prayers to those whose bodies had been destroyed, Arianel took a waystone from a pouch at her belt and placed it in the niche at the center of the channel. The spirit seer took a deep breath, bringing calm to her mind. This was the most difficult part of the ceremony, the part that so few seers were able to bear. Taking a small ceremonial blade from its sheath within her sleeve, Arianel cut the flesh on the palm of her right hand. Clenching her fist over the waystone, she let 5 droplets of blood spill onto the psychic gem. The blood soaked into the waystone as if its shiny surface was porous. Arianel waited for a moment, and then suddenly the infinity circuit was alive with energy. A blaze of light shot along one of the conduits into the waystone, making it glow with inner power. She felt the spirit inside enriched by her own life essence. The psychic contact between her and the dead had been made with the offering of blood. Her head filled with visions, vistas of death, a barren plain of existence far from beyond the veil, and her mouth was dry with the taste of grave dust. Arianel knew this spirit well. His name was Althenian, an exarch of the fire dragons who had fallen at the Battle of 200 Pyres. Even in death, Althenian was as eager to serve the craft world as he had been in life. With due reverence, Arianel took the living spirit stone from the matrix and cradled it in her hands, a single tear running down her cheek. Even now, after so many centuries, she was loath to disturb those in eternal rest, to snare a spirit back from paradise. But war was close at hand, and the fighters of Yenden were few. Such sensibilities had to take second place to survival. With a heartfelt sigh, Arianel stood and started walking to the chamber, where the shells of the Wraith Guard awaited their spirits. There are some very interesting characters. Come, brothers, follow me. We hunt across the skies. Come, chosen of Cain, and see how our prey, the gangly humans, flee. There is no place for them to hide under the pale face of Lilith the moon, nor under the sun, the face of Asurian. Feel the rush of the wind against your skin, and hear her keening cry in your ears. Listen to her call well, for are we not the wild riders, the children of the storm? Enjoy the hunt, brothers. Let sword swing and blood spill. Feel the beat of your heart in your chest, and know that you yet live. Fear not the death, brothers, for she is old and slow, and will never catch the wild rider host. It is our enemies who are afraid, for each kiss of our weapons brings the sweet oblivion that they crave by opposing us. Follow me, brothers. Battle awaits. After the great cataclysm known as the Fall, the Eldar craft worlds were scattered across the galaxy. The Eldar path was begun as a means of controlling the raging emotions and desire for perfection that is the lure all Eldar must resist. The path of the warrior was founded on many craft worlds, and grew into the aspects that survive to this day. These original aspect temples were created by mighty Eldar fighters, the original exarchs of the bloody-handed god. The Eldar believe that these ancient figures survive to this day, continuing their fight for the Eldar cause whenever and wherever they appear. Many Eldar also believe that these Phoenix Lords, or Asuria as they are known to the Eldar, are no longer truly alive. that their armor is animated by the spirits of exarchs who have been absorbed into the consciousness of the Phoenix Lord. If this is true, then the Phoenix Lords would indeed be mighty warriors with many thousands of years of experience. Extracts from Inquisitor Xevik's Ancient Wanderers, the Phoenix Lords of the Eldar, examined. War is my master, death my mistress, Maugan Ra. Introspections upon Perfection by Cassandrus the Anchorite. In the spring storms of youth, it is common amongst our people to question the validity and indeed the sanity of our ways, most especially the pursuit of perfection in but one field of endeavor at a time, the path as it has been called since our ancestors created it. While the young are intellectually capable of studying the tragic lessons of the fall and the great enemy unleashed by our ancestors, their view of the universe is too narrow to truly see the lessons intrinsic in the terrible events which destroyed our homeworlds and drove forth the survivors to wander the stars. It is true of all that in youth there is a great bravery and great foolishness in equal measure, an abiding belief that no obstacle is too great to overcome, no foe too mighty to defeat, no problem so complex that it cannot be solved. Conversely, it may be said that there are those who survive the galaxy's tumult for long enough to come to believe that all obstacles, foes, and problems may not be resolved, only allayed for a brief sliver of history, which in turn is but an instant in the slow dance of the universe. Thus it is that young and old clash incessantly over the necessity of the path. The young rail against the restrictions it imposes upon them. Much as our doomed forebears did, they wish to taste every sensation, every emotion within their newfound world, as soon as possible. They do not fear the great enemy that was created by the desires of our ancestors, for their whole conception of her evil is gleaned from distant tales and legends, and that which brought fear in the nursery is spurned and ridiculed in adolescence. Only with time can they begin to feel the terrible thirst which we gave her, and begin to understand that she is a mirror image, a reflection of our worst excesses given life by the debauchery and depravity which preceded the fall. Long ago, our race realized that the only way to elude the great enemy was to shatter the reflection, to live a life of denial and focus upon but one aspect of life, pursuing it unto perfection. This is anathema to the young, just as it is to the great enemy. The young do not desire the discipline of the path, but rather their curiosity drives them to try every fruit from the tree. Thus it is that so many take the path of wandering or the path of damnation in their first years of adulthood. And so the great tragedy of our kind is played out again and again, as the number of our people shrink from generation to generation. Of all the things I learned during my sojourn upon that vast and aptly named craft world, none was more horrifying than the secret of the Infinity Circuit, a poor translation of the Eldar term for the device, but one which must suffice. I had been amongst these strange alien creatures for some months, and was slowly learning something of their customs. The Eldar are an enigmatic race, who will rarely give a direct answer to a direct question. To learn anything of their ways, I was forced to slowly piece together information from observation and careful considerations of the truth, hidden in the largely allegorical answers my guide and host would deign to give me. So it was that I had for some time been trying to fathom the Eldar's attitude to that which must needs come to us all, namely the restful sleep of death. Goodness, I don't know what's happening to my throat right now. Of all my questions, it was those upon this subject which my host seemed the most reluctant to answer. All intelligent creatures must struggle to come to terms with their own mortality, and I know of no one who has not had to conquer his fear of dying at some time. Even the bravest of warriors must overcome their fear. Indeed, it is by such confrontation that they prove themselves truly brave. Yet for such an aloof and seemingly wise race, the Eldar appear to have a fear of dying which exceeds that of any people I have ever met. Yet, slowly, I was able to piece together the truth, and came to understand why the Eldar view death with such horror, and how they avoid it through the medium of the Infinity Circuit. It is common knowledge that each Eldar bears upon his breast a highly polished gemstone. Some consider this an affectation or mere decorative bauble. Nothing could be further from the truth. These devices, whose name best translates as spirit stones, are actually psychoreceptive crystals, attuned solely to the mind of their owner, and which are designed to capture the very souls of the Eldar at the moment of death. Why exactly the Eldar should go to such lengths to capture their psychic energy, I was never able to find out. All I could ascertain was that the Eldar appear to have a belief that should their soul not be captured in this way, then it would be lost to a strange shadow realm where it would, quite literally, suffer a fate worse than death. What fate could be worse than the half-death of imprisonment in the cold crystal of a spirit stone is hard to imagine. Yet the fact remains that the Eldar prefer an infinity trapped in this way, and that the alternative is looked upon with a dread unmatched by any I have ever seen. But enough pointless hypothesizing. The fact is that at death the soul of an Eldar is captured by the spirit stone he wears on his breast. The majority of such inhabited spirit stones are taken to a place known as the Dome of the Crystal Seers, or at least such was the case in the craft world upon which I resided, and I have no reason to doubt that it is the same elsewhere. Here they rest and, one hopes, find some sort of peace. Sometimes, however, a spirit stone is grafted to the robotic body of a Wraithguard or Eldar dreadnought, imbuing its artificial form with a living intellect. The horror of such a fate is difficult to imagine, dooming the recipient as it does to an eternal shadow life, trapped in a shell of cold, unfeeling steel. These spirit warriors defend their craft world, and are much revered by their mortal counterparts. Yet I cannot help but think that such horror is little reward for honor is little reward for such great a sacrifice. Extract from My Time Amongst the Eldars, or How I Visited Yandin Craft World and Lived, by Icildan Soser. That's a word. A weird word. The Eldar are famed for their shuriken weapons. These range in size from the shuriken pistol up to the shuriken cannon, and it all works on a similar principle. The ammunition is stored as a solid core of plastic crystal material that is forced up from the magazine by a magnetic repulsor. A series of rapid high-energy impulses originate at the rear of the weapon, then move it forward at a terrific speed. These impulses detach a monomolecular slice of the ammunition core and hurl it from the weapon's barrel, while the ammunition core is kept in the line of firing impulse by the magnetic repulsor. This allows the weapon to fire upon up to 100 rounds of ammunition in a burst of 1 or 2 seconds, and each ammunition core is good for 10 or more bursts of fire before it needs replacing. The downside of this firing mechanism is its lack of rifling on the barrel, which drastically reduces its accuracy, keeping the weapon's effective range below that of standard solid ammunition weapons of similar size. Eldar laser weapons appear to function in similar ways to our own, using highly focused light beams to cause dramatic temperature change on impact with the target. However, they have far more efficient power generation and transmission systems, using artificially grown crystals to filter and refine the laser bursts to their optimum power and potency. This has given rise to such weapons as the Bright Lance, Scatter Laser, Laze Burster, and Prism Cannon. The Bright Lance's highly charged energy bolts are much more accurate than those of an Imperial-issue laser cannon, making armor under a certain thickness redundant. The Scatter Laser and Laze Blaster use crystalline power cells to store up a charge of laser energy and then fire them in a concentrated burst, much like our own multi-lasers, but in a far more energy-efficient manner. The Prism Cannon uses 2 large-stage... I don't know what I was thinking. The fearsome cannon uses a two-stage firing process with a medium-magnitude laser charge fed into a crystal prism, which greatly amplifies the shot in a fraction of a second, whilst dispersing the energy burst to target a wider area. Although shuriken and laser technology form the bulk of the Eldar arsenal, they employ a number of large support weapons that use very sophisticated technologies. Most common of these are the Distort Cannon, Shadow Weaver, and Vibro Cannon. The Distort Cannon uses a warp engine to collapse an area of real space, effectively creating a miniature warp hole. If the target is not wholly swept into warp space, it is most usually torn to pieces by the complex gravitational forces employed. Luckily, the D cannon is relatively short-ranged and inaccurate by Eldar standards. The Shadow Weaver creates a dense monofilament mesh from an as-yet unidentified organopolymer compound. This compound is kept in a liquid state within a magnetic reservoir, and when released through the thousands of microscopic firing ducts, it is woven into a web-like cloud by spinning gravity clamps. The clouds are forced high into the air before they drift down, making them ideal for disrupting an attack and causing the Eldar's enemies to seek shelter. The Vibro Cannon contains a sonic field generator that creates a rapidly scaling wave of sonic energy ranging from ultrasound to hypersonic frequencies. This wave is directed along a magnetic tunnel, and when it hits, the resulting resonant frequencies shake the target apart. This is most evident when two or more Vibro Cannons cross their sonic beams, causing tremendously powerful disparate energy waves, which can damage even the toughest target. Like all war gear of the Eldar, their close combat weapons are highly advanced and well crafted. As with most races, they make wide use of monomolecular edged blades and disruption power fields. However, there are also numerous other devices designed to overcome the foe in hand-to-hand fighting. Perhaps the most fearsome is the Banshee Mask, which contains complex circuitry designed to amplify the howling Banshee's war cries into a psychic shockwave, which obliterates the nervous system and scrambles the brain's neural pathways, rendering the victim incapable for a few seconds, or causing death in extreme cases. The Striking Scorpion's so-called Mandiblaster is another example of exotic war gear. Triggered by a psychic pickup in the helmet, the Mandiblaster fires a hail of needles at the foe, which act as a conductor for a short-ranged but powerful laser sting. Comparisons have been drawn between the Mandiblaster and the Tormentor Helm of certain Eldar pirates, which utilizes a similar mechanism. To gain greater understanding of the Eldar mind, one must begin to understand their language. It is a highly evolved system of communication developed over many tens of thousands of years. The Eldar have many tongues and dialects, some specific to craft worlds and castes within their social structure, others more widespread. It must be noted that words can appear in many different sources and languages, and yet have widely different meanings in each occurrence. This is because many Eldar words carry a range of connotations. Eldar words carry a range of connotations and references to the Eldar myth cycles. Thus, the name given to their most prevalent war engine, Falchu, is most readily translated as falcon. However, Falchu is not just any bird of prey, but is in fact the legendary falcon of Eldar myth. It is a word that is replete with implications of vengeance and retribution, of justice and the slaying of wrongdoers. In this way, Falchu appears in many texts and is wrongly translated as meaning the warcraft of the same, rather than the concept of revenge. Similarly, Murchk, the name given to the shuriken pistol, means sting of the wasp, another mythical creature which was said to plague the gods throughout the war in heaven. The term, normally translated as human, Monkey, can actually be found in stories dating thousands of years before the first contact between humans and Eldar, and refers to a race of sub-intelligent beasts that lived in the twilight realm of Koldo. Those beasts invaded the Eldar lands and subjugated them for many years. The Monkey of legend were cannibalistic, misshapen monstrosities, eventually cleansed from the galaxy by the hero Elronir. It can thus be surmised that the word Mon-K refers to any non-Eldar species the Eldar deem inferior, in need of extermination. It is also impossible for an outsider to understand anything but the most basic attributes of the Eldar language, as many of its references draw directly upon the Eldar psyche, mythical peoples and places, and long-lost times and events. For example, Riantha means, at the fundamental level, starlight. However, a full translation would read more like the starlight which shines upon the waters of Rindal during the winter. Without knowing where Rindal is, or even if it is a real or mythical place, the full meaning is impossible to ascertain. Things become even more convoluted when these words are placed within a sentence. Elthir, Koranir, Riantha, N is translated literally as the Eldar maiden who weeps tears from the for the warrior folk in the starlight which shines upon the waters of Rindal during the winter. In our own rather basic terms, the phrase would translate as widow or mourner, but in the Eldar tongue it is a much deeper expression of grief and loss, with implications of eternal woe and heartache. Personal names are of two types: titles of rank and purpose, or inherited names from the ancient tales. The first of these may also include references to the individual's prowess and temperament. Many Eldar have a ceremonial name and a common name. Warriors often have a third, a battle name. Times and circumstances when different names are used is a matter of old customs. To use To use a common name at the wrong moment would be a great insult, while to refer to a person by their ceremonial name at the wrong time is seen as fussy and aloof. Ceremonial names often grow longer with age, as achievements and abilities grow. The learned Eldar, who was kind enough to educate me in these matters, was called Alai Eltano Morea Asalonethatil, Alai of the Alitok craft world. Eltano, his birth name, Mor, the wise, Rhea, rising star, Salo, the teacher, Nethatil, family name ending. During common conversation, he is called Elthil, simply a contraction of his birth name and family name. The second type of name is most often used by the warriors, and is handed down from generation to generation from the time of legends. The exarchs have the names of great warriors from myth, and each successive exarch who wears the sacred armor takes on that name, forgetting their past life. The Eldar written language is similarly complex. Each rune is not a simple letter form like our own written Gothic, but is a symbol of a concept, much as many words in the language are more than just description. Even more strangely, many of these word concepts, while being pronounced the same, have a subtly different meaning when committed to writing. It is an area that I am barely conversant with, and do not truly understand myself. It has taken myself and my 106 predecessors this long to even grasp the most basic ideas behind the spoken tongue, and it will be many more centuries of study by myself and my successors before we can ever claim to truly understand these enigmatic aliens. Trust not in their appearance, for the Eldar are as utterly alien to good, honest men as the vile Tyranids and savage orcs. They are capricious and fickle, attacking without cause or warning. There is no understanding them, for there is nothing to understand. They are a random force in the universe. The Imperial Commander, Abriel Hume. The craft worlds of the Eldar are scattered across the stars, massive drifting starships that are home to the last survivors of a race that once ruled the universe. Now the Eldar battle against the other races of the galaxy, even resorting to piracy in their fight to avoid extinction. And with that, we bring this video to a close. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I didn't learn a whole lot about the Eldar as far as general knowledge goes, but I definitely have a good concept of how they think, so this was fun for me. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.